The Galactic Empire of Karth laughed the first time it saw humans. Not with disdain. Not with fear. With amusement. High Strategos Vakar leaned forward, mandibles clicking in derision as the holographic image of Ambassador Elias Kane flickered before the council. "You arrive begging for recognition," he hissed, "armed with chemical propellants and metallurgy barely worthy of ceremonial blades." The chamber erupted in alien laughter. Silicate elders clicked their chests, insected admirals vibrated in delight, and the soft-bodied scholars of Virex scribbled notes, with titles like Primitive Species, Expected Extinction Timeline. Kane said nothing. He didn't need to. 63 years of wars and losses had taught him that dignity is silent, not performative. He had buried a son during the Pacific Reclamation War, a wife in the lunar riots, and yet here he stood, unbroken, eyes cold, posture rigid. The Strategos leaned even closer. "Tell us, human. What weapons does your species bring to the stars?" Kane smiled faintly. "We brought none." The laughter grew louder. And that laughter cost them. Within months, the Empire declared Earth a protected inferior world, a polite euphemism meaning ripe for exploitation. Mining guilds descended, strip mining asteroids humanity had barely begun to chart. Trade ships were seized. Colonists vanished. Diplomatic protests were ignored. Then came New Horizon. A civilian agricultural station caught between a Carthian punitive raid and rebel skirmish. Families. Retirees. Veterans. 3,000 civilians died screaming into vacuum. When the footage reached Earth, old men gathered in workshops, barns, and forgotten military depots. Retired generals, dockyard foremen, militia captains, farmers who had fought wars with rusted rifles and stubborn will. They didn't cry. They didn't panic. They planned. "We can't beat their fleets," one said. "No," Kane replied. "But we don't have to." Humanity's answer was a century-old blueprint, dismissed by modern militaries as obsolete. Too heavy. Too crude. Too simple. A Gatling gun. Rotating barrels. Mechanical feed. No smart targeting. No plasma beams. No energy signature worth scanning. The Empire would laugh again, until it fired. And when it did, those laughs would die. The old soldiers rebuilt, modified, and deployed these ancient weapons with surgical precision. They knew terrain, patience, and killing. They had survived everything the galaxy could throw at them. The Empire didn't notice, not yet. But soon, the ground itself would rise against them, and humanity would remind the universe that even a primitive species carries the weight of millennia of survival, cunning, and vengeance. The Galactic Empire did not bother announcing the invasion. They never did when the target was considered insignificant. Carthian doctrine treated inferior worlds like broken tools, objects to be stepped over, not negotiated with. Earth's outer colonies were soft targets, scattered, underarmed, populated by farmers, retirees, and veterans too old for the shiny fleets of modern war. Dustfall was chosen first. A wind-scoured planet with red grit that crept into everything. The colony existed to grow algae protein and forget old wars. Its defenses consisted of rusting orbital beacons and a militia roster mostly filled with men whose knees hurt when it rained. The Carthian drop fleet descended in perfect geometric formation, hulls gleaming with adaptive shield matrices. Sensors reported minimal resistance. No orbital batteries. No electronic countermeasures. No fleet response. The Carthian ground commander, Vero III, clicked his mandibles in irritation. "Deploy shock cohorts," he ordered. "Sweep and pacify. I want prisoners for labor quotas." His adjutant hesitated. "Commander, planetary scans show unusual subterranean structures near the settlement." VRL snorted. "Bunkers? From what war? They can barely fuel their transports." The first wave landed at dawn. Grav boots kissed the soil in synchronized perfection. Energy rifles hummed softly, ready to cauterize resistance into ash. The soldiers advanced in parade formation, confident, disciplined, bored. The settlement appeared abandoned. No screaming civilians. No militia charges. No panicked radio chatter. Only wind. Viero frowned. Proceed. That was when the sound began. At first, it was faint. A low mechanical clack-clack, like distant machinery waking from sleep. The Carthian's audio sensors filtered it out as background noise. Then the sound grew louder. A grinding whir. Metal rotating against metal. Something old. Something physical. What is that? An officer asked. Before Viero could answer, the valley erupted. The Gatling gun did not announce itself with light or energy spikes. There was no warning flare, no electromagnetic bloom to trip sensors. Just motion and violence. 6 barrels spun up to speed. The first burst tore through the forward ranks like a god clearing his throat. Carthian shields flared instinctively, calibrated for plasma dispersion and particle beams. They failed catastrophically. Solid slugs punched through shimmering fields as if they were paper. Armor crumpled. Bodies exploded. The noise was deafening. A continuous roar, punctuated by wet impacts, and the shrill screams of soldiers who had never known pain like this. Limbs vanished. Torsos folded inward. Blood, thick and violet, sprayed across the dust. Viero screamed orders, but the comet dissolved into chaos. Return fire! Energy bolts streaked toward the ridgeline, harmlessly over it. The humans had dug deep. The Gatling was entrenched in reinforced concrete scavenged from old mining rigs. Camouflaged. Shielded not by energy fields, but by layers of dirt, steel, and stubbornness. Behind it stood men who had fought wars the Empire had never studied. Steady, growled Sergeant Halvorsen, age 68, hands firm on the grips. Short bursts. Let it breathe. The barrel assembly glowed dull red, but never overheated. The design was too simple to fail easily. Every malfunction could be fixed with a wrench and profanity. Carthian drones deployed next, sleek, intelligent machines designed to outthink opponents. The Gatling shredded them. No hacking. No targeting confusion. Just metal hitting metal until nothing moved. The Empire's troops tried to flank. They ran straight into overlapping kill zones, rigged mines, and secondary guns salvaged from museums and scrapyards. Old weapons, yes, but refurbished, reinforced, and wielded by people who understood terrain, patience, and hate. A Carthian officer crawled behind cover, shrieking into his calm. This is impossible! They have no advanced weapons! A human voice crackled back over an open channel. We never said we were advanced, it said. We said we were experienced. Viero watched his elite cohort disintegrate in under 10 minutes. Retreat was unthinkable. Defeat by primitives was political suicide. So he ordered the second wave. He never lived to regret it. When orbital fire finally came, it was too late. Human civilians had evacuated days earlier. The only thing left to burn were empty structures and baited positions. The Gatling crew withdrew calmly, wheeling the weapon into an underground rail system built decades ago. Just in case. Dustfall fell silent. But the message had already spread. Across Carthian space, commanders reviewed combat footage in disbelief. Analysts replayed the same frames again and again: shield failure, kinetic penetration, sustained fire with no energy signature. One junior tactician whispered the unthinkable. What if their past isn't obsolete? The high strategos crushed him for that remark. But fear had taken root. And humanity was just getting started. The Galactic Empire did what it always did when embarrassed. It escalated. Official broadcasts declared Dustfall a statistical anomaly. Propaganda reels showed slowed, edited footage implying sabotage, rebel interference, even forbidden technology smuggling. The high strategos assured the Council that corrective action was underway. Privately, the war rooms were in panic. Carthian analysts tore apart sensor logs, frame by frame. No energy spikes. No AI signatures. No quantum encryption. Just mass, velocity, and obscene amounts of kinetic force. One scientist said it aloud. Their weapons are immune to our doctrine. He was reassigned to waste management. The Empire adapted, on paper. Shields were thickened. Armor layered. Troops equipped with recoil-dampening fields and predictive combat algorithms. Drone swarms were doubled. Everything screamed modern. Humanity watched. Took notes. Smiled grimly. The next target wasn't a colony. It was a supply convoy. The Empire believed in clean lines, logistics ships escorted by pristine cruisers, moving along predictable lanes calculated by AI efficiency models. They never imagined anyone would challenge them there. A human freighter drifted near the lane, broadcasting civilian codes. Old hull. Scarred plating. Transponder pinging as agricultural surplus. The Carthian escort barely glanced at it. Then the freighter rotated. Panels fell away like shedding skin. 6 twin-linked Gatling mounts unfolded from the hull, barrels already spinning. No target lock. No warning. The convoy died screaming. The first escort cruiser lost its sensor array in under 2 seconds. The second took a burst through its bridge, command crew liquefied before alarms could sound. Missile countermeasures never triggered, there was nothing to spoof. Kinetic rounds punched into fuel pods, cargo holds, life support nodes. The convoy scattered, discipline shattered by something their simulations had never predicted: sustained, accurate, low-tech murder. A Carthian captain screamed into the void. "Engage shields! Engage!" His ship vented atmosphere instead. The freighter didn't chase survivors. It didn't need to. The damage rippled outward. Factories halted. Garrisons went hungry. Morale fractured. The Empire's pristine war machine began to creak. That was when humanity did something unforgivable. They boarded. At Karth's frontier fortress, an immobile behemoth bristling with weapons, human breaching pods slammed into hull plating. Not stealthy. Not elegant. Just violent. The Carthians expected energy blades and drones. They got men and women in patched armor, hair gray, eyes cold, hauling belt-fed Gatlings on skeletal exoframes. Corridors turned into slaughterhouses. Energy weapons overheated in close quarters. Shields flickered against continuous impact. The Gatlings didn't care about heat buildup or EMP bursts. They worked as long as hands turned cranks and fingers held triggers. "Fall back!" a Carthian noble screamed. "Into what?" another replied before being cut in half. In the heart of the fortress, a wounded Carthian commander confronted a human boarding leader, a woman in her 50s with a wedding ring still on her finger. "Why use such primitive tools?" he hissed. "You could have joined us." She leaned close so he could hear over the roaring barrels. "You laughed at our history," she said. "So we brought it with us." The fortress fell. Across the Empire, uprisings flared. Client species saw blood in the water. The myth of Carthian invincibility was dead, shredded by weapons older than their empire's founding myths. The high strategos demanded a decisive battle. A final engagement. Total war. Humanity accepted. Not with fleets, but with veterans. And waiting guns. The final confrontation was unlike anything the Empire had imagined. Karth Prime shone like a jewel of arrogance, its orbital fleet stretched across every quadrant in a display meant to terrify. Generals and admirals spoke in endless simulations, predicting humanity's swift demise. Humanity, by contrast, arrived quietly, no parades, no fleets, only cargo pods, patched armor, and Gatlings mounted on rails, carts, and exocets. Old men and women, gray-haired, scarred, and limping, smiled like devils. The Empire's first volleys struck nothing. Humans ducked, rolled, laughed at beams of plasma, and advanced through corridors like phantoms of war. Gatlings spun with relentless fury, shredding walls, shields, and soldiers alike. Those trained in centuries of tactical perfection crumbled before simple, mechanical mayhem. A Carthian admiral, bleeding and screaming over the calm, demanded reinforcements. Humanity's reply was calm. Not needed. The corridors became rivers of red and smoke. Veteran soldiers moved with precision, setting traps, overlapping fire zones, and exploiting every weakness the aliens never imagined. Shields flickered and failed. Energy weapons overheated. The Empire's finest were reduced to chaos in mere minutes. In the heart of Karth Prime, a wounded noble confronted a human leader, a woman in her 50s with a wedding ring still on her finger. "Why use such primitive weapons?" he hissed. "You laughed at our history," she said. "So we brought it with us." When it was over, the surviving Carthians begged for terms. Humanity demanded only one thing: memory. Ambassador Elias Kane stood before the Galactic Council months later, old and gray but unbowed. The chamber was silent, no laughter remained. "You have seen what we are capable of," Kane said. "Not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we remember. We adapt. And when provoked, we act with precision that leaves no room for arrogance." A young alien diplomat asked, "Will you share your tactics with us?" "No," Kane replied. "Those are reminders, not instructions. Reminders that progress without humility invites disaster." In warehouses across human space, Gatlings were oiled, cleaned, and stored. Barrels didn't spin, not yet, but they were ready. Somewhere in the industrial heart of a quiet colony, Sergeant Halvorson's voice echoed through the halls. "Let them laugh again. We'll see who's laughing last." Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had done something far better. They had taught it fear and respect, forged from steel, blood, and the cunning of those who had survived everything history could throw at them. The Empire would remember Dustfall, Karth Prime, every human who stood in their path. And they would never underestimate humanity again. Because some weapons never die. And some humans never forgive.